The cafe smelled of cinnamon and fresh coffee that winter morning. Snow fell gently outside the frosted windows, dusting the Chicago streets in white. Inside, the warmth wrapped around you like an old blanket. Thomas Bradford sat at his usual corner table, staring into his black coffee. At 52, he'd built an empire in commercial real estate. His suits were tailored. His watch was Swiss. His penthouse overlooked Lake Michigan. But none of it filled the emptiness that had settled in his chest 3 years ago when cancer took his wife, Margaret. He came to this cafe every Saturday morning. Same table, same coffee, same silence. "Excuse me, sir?" The voice was small, uncertain. Thomas looked up to find a little girl standing beside his table. She couldn't have been more than 6 or 7 years old. She wore a pale blue dress that seemed too thin for December, and a pink knit cap with a little pom-pom on top covered her head. In her arms, she clutched a worn teddy bear. "Can I sit here?" she asked. "Just for a little while?" Thomas glanced around the cafe. There were plenty of empty tables, but something in the child's eyes stopped him from saying no. They were tired eyes. Too tired for someone so young. "I suppose so," he said, gesturing to the chair across from him. The little girl climbed into the seat, setting her teddy bear carefully on the table between them. She folded her small hands and smiled at him. It was a brave smile, the kind people wear when they're trying not to be afraid. "I'm Emma," she said. "This is Mr. Buttons." "Thomas," he replied, nodding at the bear politely. "Pleased to meet you both." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Thomas noticed the dark circles under Emma's eyes, the translucent quality of her skin. He'd seen that look before, in the oncology ward where Margaret had spent her final months. "Are you here alone?" he asked gently. "My mom's at the counter," Emma said, pointing toward a woman in a worn coat talking to the barista. "She's trying to find enough change for hot chocolate. I told her I wasn't that cold, but she worries." Thomas felt something shift in his chest. Without thinking, he stood and walked to the counter. A few minutes later, he returned with 2 large hot chocolates topped with whipped cream and a plate of chocolate chip cookies. "I thought Mr. Buttons might be hungry," Thomas said. Sliding the plate toward Emma, the little girl's eyes grew wide. "Really?" "Really," as Emma sipped her hot chocolate. Leaving a whipped cream mustache on her upper lip, her mother rushed over. Looking worried and apologetic, "Emma, sweetheart?" "You can't just bother people," she said, her voice strained with exhaustion. She was perhaps in her early 30s, but worry had aged her face. "I'm so sorry, sir." "She's not bothering me at all," Thomas said, standing. "Please join us. I'm Thomas." "Rachel," the woman said hesitantly, sinking into the chair beside her daughter. "We don't mean to intrude." Over the next hour, the story came out in pieces. Emma had leukemia. They'd moved to Chicago for treatment at Children's Memorial. Rachel worked 2 jobs, but medical bills were crushing them. They lived in a studio apartment above a dry cleaner. Emma's father had left when the diagnosis came. "Too scared to watch his daughter suffer," Rachel said quietly, looking away. Thomas listened. Really listened. It had been so long since he'd truly connected with anyone. Since Margaret died, he'd wrapped himself in work, in numbers, in the cold comfort of success. But sitting here, watching Emma share cookies with her teddy bear, watching Rachel try to hold back tears while maintaining her dignity, something in him woke up. "What if I could help?" Thomas asked quietly. Rachel shook her head immediately. "We couldn't possibly accept charity." "We'll manage somehow." "It wouldn't be charity," Thomas said. "I lost my wife to cancer 3 years ago. We never had children. Margaret always wanted to help kids. She volunteered at the Children's Hospital for 20 years. He paused, feeling the words catch in his throat. "Let me do something in her memory, please." Rachel's eyes filled with tears. "I don't know what to say." "Say yes," Emma piped up, grinning with her whipped cream mustache still in place. That Saturday morning became the first of many. Thomas started small, paying off their medical bills, setting up a trust fund for Emma's treatment. But something unexpected happened. He didn't just write checks and disappear. He showed up. He came to Emma's chemotherapy appointments, bringing new books and puzzles. He sat with Rachel in the waiting room, sharing coffee and stories about Margaret. He learned that kindness isn't just about money. It's about presence. About showing up when life is hard and sitting in the difficult moments with people, Emma taught him how to laugh again. She showed him her drawings of superheroes fighting bad cells. She made him promise to dance with her at her high school graduation. Even though she was only 7, Rachel taught him that strength comes in many forms. Single mothers working double shifts, little girls facing their fears with teddy bears and brave smiles, people who keep going when everything says stop. As winter turned to spring, Emma's health improved. The treatments were working. Her smile grew less brave and more genuine. Her mother's eyes lost some of their worry. And Thomas, who had spent 3 years building walls around his heart, found them crumbling. One Saturday morning, sitting at their usual table, Emma looked at Thomas seriously. "You know what, Mr. Thomas?" she said. "What's that, sweetheart?" "I think Mr. Buttons and I saved you just like you saved us." Thomas felt tears prick his eyes. "Out of the mouths of babes," as his mother used to say. "I think you might be right," he said softly. That day, Thomas understood something profound. We're put on this earth to help each other, to see the people right in front of us, to say yes when someone asks, "Can I sit here?" Because sometimes the person you think you're saving is actually saving you. Outside, snow began to fall again, gentle and forgiving, covering the world in grace, and inside the warm cafe, 3 people who'd been strangers just months before sat together, sharing hot chocolate and cookies, proving that families aren't just born. Sometimes on cold winter mornings, they're chosen.